There's a type of wave so mysterious and so powerful that for centuries it was the stuff of legend, nothing more than marine folklore. Rogue waves 30 meters tall existed only as stories told by overzealous sailors, a phrase muttered in hushed tones as they mourned the loss of their seamates. It was a concept that up until very recently science refused to even acknowledge was possible. Like the Kraken, mermaids or Atlantis, a wave so large that it could be seen from space just could not exist. Capable of ferociously capsizing the most hardy of ships and then disappearing as quickly as they appeared. So imagine the horror in the eyes of those doubters several centuries later if they learn that the legend of the rogue wave is in fact a scientific reality. Rogue waves are one of the most terrifying concepts in Earth science. Steep, insurmountable walls of water with the capacity to annihilate anything and anyone in their path. I'm James Stewart and you're watching Astrum Earth. In this video we'll explore the phenomenon of rogue waves, how they form, where they come from, and crucially, how likely you might be to encounter one. To give you an idea of what we're dealing with here, these are the words of Ernest Shackleton from 1919, who gave an account of an extreme wave he witnessed during his epic 1,300-kilometre voyage in the 7-metre whaler James Caird from Elephant Island to South Georgia. I called to the other men that the sky was clearing, and then a moment later I realised that what I had seen was not a rift in the clouds, but the white crest of an enormous wave. It was a mighty upheaval of the ocean. White surged the foam of the breaking sea around us. We felt our boat lifted and flung forward like a cork in breaking surf. We were in a seething chaos of tortured water, but somehow the boat lived through it, half full of water, sagging to the dead weight and shuddering under the blow. Despite accounts like these, for centuries, science refused to acknowledge the existence of rogue waves at all. Scientific methodology for measuring the size of a wave simply did not allow for these anomalies, or the frequency at which reports came in. So far-fetched a concept was it, and so few that experienced them sadly returned to tell the tale, that despite numerous stories like Shackleton's, it's only in the last few decades that science has had no choice but to accept the reality of rogue waves. So what actually are they? Rogue waves are those massive, unexpected waves that seem to come out of nowhere and can be incredibly powerful. These waves are much bigger than the surrounding waves and can appear without warning, making them especially dangerous for sailors and offshore structures. Unlike typical waves that follow predictable patterns, rogue waves are rare and often surprising. They don't seem to come from the same direction as prevailing wind or waves, which is why they've been the stuff of legends and maritime lore for so long. Technically speaking, when scientists talk about wave height, they tend to focus on the tallest 1/3 of the waves passing through a point in a given time period. They call the average of these the significant wave height. No matter the weather conditions, waves vary in size. It's those taller significant waves that have the most energy and are most likely to cause damage. To be a rogue wave, the wave has to be at least twice as high as the significant wave height in the area, and throughout history there have been many significantly larger than that. The first person to officially report a rogue wave was 19th century French explorer and naval officer Jules Dumont d'Urville, a botanist and cartographer sailing around the world on various expeditions. Dumont reported seeing rogue waves over 30 meters high in the Indian Ocean, a report bolstered by 3 eyewitnesses who'd been with him. Ultimately though, his claims amounted to nothing. He was publicly ridiculed for his stories across society. Even the French Prime Minister voiced his disinterest in the stories. As such, in the decades that followed, the notion of a giant rogue wave sort of just disappeared. It wouldn't be for nearly 150 years that the phenomena crept back into the public domain once again. Skeptics agreed that waves of such a size simply did not exist, and if they did, then no one would survive long enough to return home and tell the tale. Waves are created as energy is transferred to the ocean through friction, caused by the wind blowing along the surface, as well as the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon upon the earth. This energy travels through the water as a wave, until an obstacle eventually breaks it up or crashes into the shore. The reason then that scientists didn't think it was possible for rogue waves to exist was because they thought these waves of energy were linear, otherwise known as the linear wave theory. As such, the size of waves can be predictably calculated with some simple maths. Therefore, the general scientific consensus at the time was that oceanic waves could only reach a maximum height of 9 meters. With the advent of steel-hulled ships in the 20th century, things changed, as the probability of surviving such an event increased dramatically, and so did the number of reported sightings. Indeed, between 1969 and 1994, 22 supercarriers were lost due to impact with rogue waves, killing 525 people. In 1978, the cargo ship MS München, then one of the biggest, most modern cargo vessels in the world, issued a distress signal at 3:10 AM on December 12th. That SOS call marked the last time the crew would be heard from ever again. The ship, bound for Savannah in Georgia, got into trouble in the North Atlantic under pressure from extremely bad weather. At over 240 metres long and 30 metres tall, the ship had been built to cope with waves of up to 15 metres and was widely considered unsinkable. Yet hours after the distress call was issued in the small hours of the morning, the rescue plane sent out to recover the ship found no trace of her or her crew. What followed was the largest search and rescue operation ever conducted in the North Atlantic. 13 planes circled above for signs of life, and over 100 cargo ships passing through the busy shipping lane participated in the search operation. It wasn't until months later that a lifeboat was finally recovered from the vessel and revealed something no one thought possible. The München's life rafts, which had been bolted to the ship 20 metres above the water, didn't appear to have been lowered by the crew. Instead, they'd been ripped from the ship's stern by some terrifying force and flung into the ocean. This mysterious, invisible force had enough power to bend the steel hinges backwards, snapping the lifeboat off the ship. Decades later, in the forensic files, a rogue wave has emerged as the prime suspect. Rogue waves are capable of exerting forces of 100 tons per square metre, far greater than the 15 tons the ships are usually designed to withstand. Even this tragic event still wasn't enough to sway scientific opinion on the feasibility of rogue waves, until irrefutable evidence finally emerged. In 1980, Philippe Lejour captured one of the first ever pictures of a rogue wave off the east coast of South Africa. And years later, on New Year's Day 1995, the most famous rogue wave was officially recorded. While the rest of the world were nursing hangovers that morning, the crew of the Draupner oil installation were trying to stay steady on their feet in the rough and turbulent waters of the Norwegian Sea, a relatively shallow stretch of water that only runs 100 metres deep. It's full of churning, violent waters, and the turbulent nature of the North Sea is why structures like oil platforms have to be anchored to the ground, preventing them from being washed away. To survive this hellish stretch of water, the Draupner platform was equipped with a downward pointing laser to keep track of the surrounding sea state. Little did the crew know that this device would soon make a startling discovery. On this day, the platform laser measured a mammoth 25.6 metre wave rising out of the ocean, The engineers who built the Draupner rig calculated that once every 10,000 years the North Sea might throw them a 20-metre curveball, but 25-metre waves were not part of the equation. From this moment on, everything scientists thought they knew about rogue waves changed almost overnight. Not only did this wave dwarf all scientific estimates of the maximum height of a wave, but it was also more than twice the size of the other waves surrounding the platform, which only reached 11 metres in height. This supersized freak wave was named the Draupner wave, and remains the most famous rogue wave of all time. And so science finally acknowledged the existence of rogue waves, and in turn, the linear models used to predict wave height were thrown into disrepute. The Draupner wave changed the game and the face of nautical events for good. Perhaps more pressing as a result of this discovery was the miscalculation of the amount of stress ships could withstand, a point that would come into focus soon after. That same year, the Queen Elizabeth II was en route to New York from England when a rogue wave over 27 metres struck the vessel. The wave was so large that it smashed windows in the Grand Saloon, 21 metres above the waterline. The captain later said it looked as if the ship was heading for the White Cliffs of Dover. So large was the wall of white water staring him down. A couple of years later, on February the 13th, 1997, about 5 million Legos were lost at sea when a rogue wave tipped a massive cargo ship dubbed the Tokyo Express. The event, known as the Great Lego Spill, is the worst toy-related environmental disaster of all time, and beachcombers still uncover the shipwrecked plastic treasures even today. Pieces of Lego are still turning up on the beaches of Cornwall nearly 25 years after the original spill. The ship was en route to New York after it loaded its cargo in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, when an unpredictable 8.5 metre wave smashed into the ship 20 miles off the mainland. Somewhat ironically, many of the Lego pieces were actually sea creature themed. Those sorts of events where plastic finds its way into our oceans and our ecosystems feels like it's happening more and more, doesn't it? Everywhere we turn in the news, microplastics seem to be infiltrating every corner of our world. It can be quite overwhelming, and personally speaking for me it makes me feel helpless at times. What can I do sitting here watching this video? Does it actually make a difference? Well, the good news is, yes, it actually does. Our friends at Planet Wild are a community-based nature protection organisation. Think of them like crowdfunding but for nature. Each month, their community funds a project to restore nature around the world, and then Planet Wild documents it with a YouTube video report, so you can actually see the impact of your contribution. One of their recent projects focused on cleaning up a plastic-filled river in Albania, and they've made an amazing video about it which you can find in the description. I'm already part of this community, but you can join too. Give whatever amount you can, big or small, and you can cancel at any time. I love what they do so much, I've actually got a special treat for you. The first 100 people to sign up to Planet Wild using my code ASTROM9 will get their first month paid for by me. Yup, just scan the QR code on screen right now or click the link in the video description. The best part, you'll immediately have an impact and see the results in less than 30 days. The rogue waves continued into the start of a new millennium. A British vessel called RRS Discovery recorded a 30-metre rogue wave off the coast of Scotland. The ship was rigged with instruments. Everything that happened out there was being precisely measured. Months later, long after she'd returned safely to the Southampton docks, Penny Holliday, one of the expedition's two chief scientists, began to analyse these figures. She discovered that the waves they had experienced were the largest ever scientifically recorded in the open ocean. The wave was so large it caused the ship to heel 28 degrees to port, roll 30 degrees back to starboard and then recover. The report, which wasn't presented until several years later, concluded as follows. None of the state-of-the-art weather forecasts and wave models, the information upon which all ships, oil rigs, fisheries and passenger boats rely, had predicted these behemoths. According to all of the theoretical models at the time, under this particular set of weather conditions, waves of this size should never have existed. Yet they did, and they continued to exist. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration put together a catalogue in 2007. They listed 50 historical maritime incidents that were most likely due to rogue waves. And unsurprisingly, the encounters have continued well into the 21st century. It was here that something very special came along that caught the entire world off guard. The most extreme rogue wave ever recorded. In November of 2020, a freak wave came out of the blue, lifting a lonesome buoy off the coast of British Columbia, near Ucluelet, 17.6 metres high. So shocked was the world by this, that local news channels referred to the so-called Ucluelet wave as a once-in-a-millennium event. The Ucluelet wave broke records because it towered 3 times as tall as the surrounding waves, as tall as a 4-storey building. This was the most extreme size difference ever observed in a rogue wave. Despite taking well over a century, rogue waves had finally revealed themselves to the scientific world, and indeed the world as a whole, changing the nature of maritime travel forever. Our oceans contain so much intrigue and so much mystery, with many people across the planet harbouring fears of what may lurk down below. Yet, all along, one of nature's most powerful forces was hidden in plain sight. Having identified the terrifyingly tangible existence of rogue waves, the next big question was, where exactly do they come from? Given how new all of this is, rogue waves are still very much an area of active scientific research at the time of recording this video. That's a sort of nice way of saying scientists haven't quite pinned down a simple single reason for how rogue waves are formed. It seems unlikely there is one nicely succinct gift-wrapped answer for me to give you. Instead, at the moment, there are 3 main theories which we'll consider here. The first is the notion of constructive interference, and this is the basic physics of how rogue waves are formed. Essentially, it suggests that a bunch of waves together in an ocean, all travelling at different speeds and directions, sort of pile into each other, creating one single giant wave for a short period of time. When the swells pass through one another, their crests, troughs and lengths coincide, reinforcing each other, and is hence referred to as wave reinforcement. Secondly, it's also possible that ocean currents may play a role in rogue wave formation. When waves formed by a storm develop in a water current against the normal wave direction, an interaction can take place, which results in a sort of shortening of the wave frequency. This can cause the waves to dynamically join together, forming very big rogue waves. The currents where these are sometimes seen are the Gulf Stream and the Agulhas current. But there are also rogue waves that occur away from ocean currents, quite literally in the middle of nowhere. So what about them? For this, we need to dive into the mystifying world of quantum physics for a non-linear explanation. In simple terms, this theory demonstrates that wave components can interact and exchange energy without a tangible outside cause. Random processes caused by smaller waves can create an unstable, larger wave. That large wave soaks up energy from smaller waves around it before it becomes too unstable and then collapses. This causes waves around the rogue wave to become smaller, concentrating their energy into one wave that lasts longer. Scientists at the Australian National University, Hamburg University of Technology and the University of Turin demonstrated the possibility in a 2012 experiment involving a Lego pirate on a ship, yes, Lego again, floating in a fish tank that was published in Physical Review X. Non-linear interactions between waves allow one wave to sap energy from surrounding waves and focus it into one much larger, short-lived wave. This theory gets very technical and in truth offers the very unsatisfying conclusion that everything is random and stuff like this can just happen? Cool? We'll let you pick your favourite theory and let us know why down below in the comments. But one final point on rogue wave formation is how they differ from breaking waves. Those are the huge waves we see surfers trying to tame in spectacular fashion, most notably in places like Nazaré in Portugal. These types of waves occur near the shore, where the depth of the sea floor rises steeply, forcing the momentum of the water upward. In the case of Nazaré, it sits at the end of an underwater canyon, making it perfect for these breaking waves to rise to the crazy heights of 28 metres, which we saw ridden by German big wave surfer Sebastian Studney. Whilst incredibly impressive, the size is the only thing that these breakers have in common with rogue waves. Because we know how breaking waves are formed, they are infinitely more predictable than the rogue waves that are capable of striking out of nowhere in the middle of the ocean. So then, where might you find a giant wall of water looming towards you? Unlike killer whales, finding a killer wave is a little more tricky. Part of their devastation is their randomness. We simply do not know where these things might appear. That's a huge part of what makes them so terrifying. While some of the encounters over the years have happened close-ish to coastlines or land, some have literally come out of nowhere in the middle of a vast ocean expanse. It's the reason their formation is so hard to articulate. How does physics account for something so random? The good or possibly bad news, depending on how you look at it, is there are parts of the world more likely to encounter this type of phenomena based on their geographical factors. Things like wind direction, currents, and even the topography of the ocean floor. The interplay of these factors can create rogue wave focus points, rather like focusing light through a magnifying glass. One of these can be found in South Africa, where the fast-flowing Agulhas current changes the characteristics of waves along the east coast of South Africa, and is responsible for sinking around 150 ships in recent decades. It flows southward along the southeast coast of Mozambique and the coast of South Africa before turning eastward to join the flow from Africa to Australia, and is one of the fastest flowing currents in the ocean, reaching an estimated top speed of 5.8 miles per hour. Caused by a combination of strong winds, the cold Antarctic circumpolar current and the warmer Agulhas current, abnormally large waves are often reported here, with wave increases, in extreme cases, by 60% as a result. The research shows that when strong, fast-moving currents like this one interact with oncoming waves, it causes them to significantly increase in height and steepness, particularly when the waves encounter the current at an opposing angle. Based on that theory, another potential hotspot for rogue waves could be in and around the Gulf Stream. This could go some way to explaining some of the historical shipwrecks in and around the Bermuda Triangle. We've actually got a separate video about that if you'd like to check it out. These findings, published in 2005, have led to many ships avoiding the Agulhas area where possible, especially during severe weather. But how can we predict where a rogue wave may strike next? For this, we enter the realm of the unknown, the future. Researchers at the University of Maryland have created a new tool they claim predicts rogue waves up to 5 minutes in advance of them striking. They used a dataset consisting of 16 million sea surface elevation measurements from 172 buoys located near the shores of the continental United States. This dataset contained thousands of rogue waves, which the team then processed and compiled for training the neural networks. Whilst that all sounds quite promising, it's worth noting this technology hasn't been effectively used outside of a controlled environment, and the ocean, as we've explored in this video, is anything but controllable. Perhaps there might be a time in the coming decades where we can predict when these ocean monsters might strike. But until then, it still feels very much like a game of chance. Depending on your perspective, rogue waves might well be either one of the most impressive phenomena on planet Earth, or one of the most terrifying. Or for me, a bit of both. undeniably one of the most devastating concepts in natural science. A simple question of physics that has the capacity to annihilate anything in its path without a trace. The good news is that much of the research we've discussed has caused ship makers to change the way they build ships and make them much stronger to absorb something like this. But even so, seeing a huge, insurmountable wall of water coming towards you, towering over something as large and as modern as a cruise liner, and capable of exerting pressure of about 100 tons per square metre, is surely something few, if any, would survive. Some reassurance might come from the data, however. Despite these once every 1300 year events occurring a bit more frequently than that, the most recent numbers show that only 210 rogue waves were reported over a 7-year period from 2011 to 2018. Indeed, the last widely accepted ship to be sunk by a rogue wave was the German cargo vessel we discussed earlier, the MS München, which disappeared in the North Atlantic in December 1978. The chance of you actually experiencing a rogue wave is very, very slim, and the chance of your ship being sunk as a result of one is even slimmer. But it certainly adds a bit more tension to the next time you're out on the open ocean, knowing a rogue wave may be brewing not too far away.